Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the internet, and the like, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2. And today, we're finally doing a loadout request. Oh my god, it has been forever since I've actually sat down, looked at my Steam discussion page, and found a loadout that genuinely interested me, because, I'm gonna be honest, a lot of them seem a little bit far-fetched, and no offense, a bit absurd. But this one is actually a bit of an older one that was requested many months ago, and I apologize for not getting any loadout request videos out in quite a long span of time. In my last video where I ever referred to loadout requests, which was the Do It in Moderation video, I talked about how I just could not bring myself to consistently make these videos over and over again. It's just, I made the mistake of doing the same type of video constantly, and eventually I just burned out. I needed a break, and after taking a rather extensive break, I finally took the time to see what kind of loadout I should play with next. And this one is actually one that I can appreciate. So, Henry Fu requested that I play as the Scout, and the weapons I'm using for today are the Soda Popper, the Criticola, and the Atomizer baseball bat. So the Soda Popper is the long-distance cousin of the Force of Nature, twice removed. It has the same type of pellet spread, has the same type of firing rate, but this weapon has no stupid knockback effect, because I'm not sure if I've explained this before, but let me clarify. I dislike the Force of Nature because of that knockback effect, but this, it has absolutely no knockback effect, and as a plus, the reload speed is much faster. And then we start to boil down to the gimmick of the Soda Popper, and that is its ability to grant you a series of 5 extra miniature jumps, which is basically like having 5 double jumps, essentially. So you have this hype meter that builds up, and the little meter on the screen is currently red, and as soon as I activate it, I begin to jump around constantly. So not only does the hype meter allow you to reach new heights that you could formerly not reach as a scout, but it's also really good for tripping up enemies like soldiers who really anticipate you to land on the ground, and they try to spam you out with rockets, but this, oh no, this weapon is actually surprisingly good for what it's worth. I mean, a lot of people saw the extra jumps as being extremely quirky, and I'll admit, I was one of those people, and I just kind of forgot about the Soda Popper altogether, but now that I've given it a bit more love and dedication to using, I'd say it delivered. I'd say it's probably the best FedEx delivery service out there. So, next up we have the Criticola, which, upon drinkage, grants you 8 seconds of extra movement speed. Your attacks will mini-crit for that time, and overall you take an increase of damage by 10%, which is actually not that bad. Like, again, sort of like the Soda Popper, the Criticola is really extremely underrated, but it definitely does have its uses. For one thing, the Criticola, as you're about to see right here, is really good for doing rollouts outside of maps like King of the Hill and 5CP, where you can just reach the front lines in almost no time at all. It's really good for just getting that extra run speed if you don't want to consider using those mini-crit attacks anytime soon. Very good. I'm not really sure why I neglected to use the Criticola for the longest time, but I guess like a lot of other people, I think there are a few better options as to what you could put in your secondary slot, but for this loadout in particular, I enjoyed it. And lastly, we have the Atomizer, which grants you a triple jump, and it costs you 10 health once you use it. Apart from that, the bat has a lower swinging rate, and it deals less damage overall. That kind of trade-off might turn some people off, but then again, you don't really use melee weapons as a scout very often, and surprisingly enough, I didn't feel the need to in this loadout either, because the Soda Popper reloads at a ridiculous speed. So the triple jump, it takes away 10 health, and that's pretty much it. Like, sort of like the Soda Popper, again, it's really good for tripping up classes that don't expect you to have all of those jumps, and it might make it a little less obvious when you don't have the thing. You're not necessarily holding the Atomizer out like you would with the Soda Popper. And not only that, but you can use that jump anytime. You don't necessarily have to build up hype like you would with the shotgun. So, to discuss the compatibility of all these weapons together while there's still plenty of time left on the video, I have to say, as I've emphasized multiple times, I did legitimately enjoy this loadout. But because the mini-crits on the Criticola basically gives you a simulation of what the old soda popper was like, which I can personally appreciate because mini crit damage on just about any scout weapon is fairly devastating. Now that the soda popper does excuse me while I tried to form words in my head. The soda popper, it is interesting to point out, once had this ability with its hype meter to grant you a series of mini crits, and in turn the weapon could not randomly crit. Now, one interesting thing too was that the hype meter could not be activated on will. You'd had to actually switch weapons in order to save that hype meter for when you felt like it was actually necessary to use it. But now, with this new extra meter which grants you the extra jumps, it's not all that bad. Again, a lot of people saw it and deemed it quirky at the beginning of time, but now that I've given it a chance, I have to say it's a pretty useful weapon. If you have a decent aim as a scout, it's really good, because you can just line up those shots if you're jumping all around the enemy like a lunatic, and eventually you'll kill them, because it has that faster reloading speed. You can just spam shots over and over again. And of course, I do miss shots from time to time, because I'm not the most experienced scout, and I'm not really that great of a shot with a lot of his weapons. Sometimes you just have to be in the zone to actually dish out enough damage, and I have to say, considering my general lack of usage over this kind of weapon, things actually turned out pretty well, and I got a couple of decent gameplays. The only thing I totally disliked about this loadout is the Atomizer. The Atomizer is entirely redundant to equip with this, and the reason for that is you already have those 5 extra jumps off of the soda popper's hype meter, and the Atomizer, lo and behold, grants you a triple jump, which cannot be used with the hype meter's jumps, notably, and you take 10 damage because of it. I just never really found any situations where I felt the obligation to use the triple jump, and it could just be a subconscious thing because I really didn't feel like taking 10 extra damage, but that's kind of a thing you just need to suck up and deal with if you're going to be playing as that kind of scout that likes to trip up other enemies. But also because of the fact that you still had this hype meter to consider. So I'm going to be honest, I didn't enjoy having the Atomizer equipped in this gameplay, and you pretty much never see me break it out until like the very end, and even then, that's at the end of the round. Spoiler warning, we win this round, as you may or may not realize at this point, but there you go. So overall, aside from the fact that the Atomizer was essentially useless on this loadout in particular, I enjoyed it, so thank you very much, Henry Fu, for the request, and thank you guys very much for watching. Have a great day or evening, and I guess I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.